At age 16, he played online games and sold equipment, earning $400,000 per month. At 17, he dropped out of school and learned how to roast chestnuts from a Chinese person, earning $1.2 million per month. That same year, his father went bankrupt and the family had $40 million in debt. At 19, he founded a seaweed company. At 20, he became a millionaire. At 21, he helped his family pay off their debts. By 26, his seaweed company had exported to 27 countries and had an annual sales revenue of $1.5 billion. From an internet addict teenager to Thailand's youngest billionaire, Athapat Kulapongvanich is a legendary entrepreneur in Thailand. Today we will talk about his story, from which everyone can learn so much. The story begins with 16-year-old Tag, secretly playing online games during computer class. He got 25 pairs of high-level boots, which he sold for high prices in the game. Someone said that there was not enough money in the game and offered him 10,000 Thai baht in cash. Tag was dumbfounded. 10,000 baht per pair, that's 250,000 baht. It wasn't long before he was making a fortune. At 16, he became a millionaire and bought his first car, which he parked in the school principal's spot at school. Although he was reprimanded by the principal, he became the school's star. His mother asked if he had gone gambling, and his father said, "Don't engage in non-mainstream activities. It's better to study hard." Of course, Tag didn't listen and continued to be obsessed with games. But retribution came quickly. He didn't get into college, and his game account was permanently banned due to an offline transaction being discovered by the authorities. Tag felt a little sad and turned to look at his newly bought PS2. The seller had given him a super cheap DVD player as a gift. An idea of making a profit by earning the difference occurred to him, so he went to the store and bought 500 DVD players at a very low price, ready to start his money-making journey. But when he got home, he found that the DVD players were fake and most of them were broken. Tag angrily returned to the store, but the shop owner told him that there was no refund or exchange. He also mocked Tag with a sarcastic expression, saying, "Cheap goods don't come with good quality, don't you know that?" Tag was furious and smashed the counter in anger, but the shop owner slapped him and he had to flee. This was the first time he realized that the real world was not as easy as in a game. Tag had to go to a private university, but after experiencing the sweet taste of sudden wealth, how could he be content with a simple life? He spent all day thinking and had no intention of studying. One day, when he was with his girlfriend in Chinatown, she wanted to eat the candied chestnuts there, so Tag got out of the car to buy some for her. Suddenly, he thought about how popular the candied chestnuts were, but only in Chinatown did many people come to queue up and buy them. What if he took the candied chestnuts to sell elsewhere? The idea came to him, and he put it into action. Tag went to a trade show and saw the first automatic chestnut roaster in the country. He immediately believed it and bought it. When he returned home, his father was angry. Such a machine could be bought at a weekend market at half price, and he was easily cheated. But he didn't know that his son had the mentality of a true boss and was never worried or anxious about small amounts of money. He immediately focused on learning how to roast chestnuts. While others were in school, he skipped class every day to go to Chinatown to learn how to roast chestnuts. His parents were worried and thought they had raised a fool, but they underestimated their son. Roasting chestnuts was a serious business for Tag. The first step was to learn from the masters and take note of their steps for making chestnuts. Step 1. Soak them in water before cooking. Step 2. Stir them. Another master told him that he needed to use pebbles to roast chestnuts, and another master tasted a very delicious syrup and quickly bought the recipe from him. Soon, Tag's candied chestnuts were highly praised by the whole family. He went to a mall, rented a spot, and prepared to open for business. Because he had to go to class, he hired a butler to help sell the chestnuts, but only sold 2 boxes on the first day. He asked the butler what happened, and the butler said he didn't know, maybe he wasn't attractive. Tag immediately returned to the market and continued to take notes everywhere to see how others were selling. Some used gifts, some used discounts, but what really impressed him was a group of fundraisers who stood at the entrance to the bathroom soliciting donations. Most of the people who came out of the bathroom would give them money, which he called choosing the right locate. Tag quickly went to the mall and insisted on raising prices to move his stall to the entrance of the parking lot, so that every passing family would buy some candied chestnuts from him before leaving. As expected, the stall was surrounded by people after the move and couldn't keep up with the demand. Tag was extremely excited. He calculated that with this level of sales, he could open several branches and earn 1.2 million baht a month. As promised, he quickly opened the branches. Just as business was starting to pick up, he received a notice from the mall that his exhaust fumes were affecting the environment and the ceiling had been blackened. If the problem couldn't be solved, he would have to close down. Tag had to paint the ceiling himself. It was also at this time that he received the bad news about his father's bankruptcy and the family's decision to move to China, but Tag was unwilling to leave and wanted to continue his entrepreneurial journey in Thailand. He faced more difficulties as a lonely entrepreneur, and when the mall found that he couldn't solve the exhaust problem, they closed all his stalls. His second business venture failed, and he was depressed for a while. One day, his girlfriend brought a whole box of fried seaweed from a distant place to eat, and it tasted so good that Tag tried a piece and couldn't stop eating. He immediately had a new idea to sell fried seaweed. As promised, he bought a lot of seaweed, but it all spoiled within a week. What should he do? Tag is not afraid of difficulties and came to the agricultural university to ask the food processing department professor how to preserve seaweed. The professor was touched by his story and showed him a vacuum sealing machine, telling him that the secret to preserving quality was to use vacuum packaging and buy a sealing machine. This also means a huge cost. In order to raise money, Tag sold his automatic chestnut roaster and tried to fry seaweed, but his housekeeper simply couldn't fry any delicious seaweed. This experiment tried 10 boxes, wasting $100,000. Tag ran out of money and sold his beloved game console and computer. The butler wanted to give up and also advised Tag to stop the loss in time, but who knows, Tag is more determined. He said that the $100,000 must be wasted, and also convinced the housekeeper to continue the experiment. Soon, a storm came and wet all the new seaweed, and the butler fell and almost fell to death due to the rainwater. Tag hurried to send the butler to the hospital. Sometimes, things just don't go well, but it's in this kind of situation that the king can survive. Tag returned home and tried to fry delicious seaweed by himself. The oil from frying the seaweed left many burns on his hands, and many years later, these wounds have not faded and scars will accompany him for life. But at this time, he didn't care at all. He continued to fry, determined to fry delicious seaweed. The seaweed was fried again and his money was also spent. Is this a dead end? Suddenly, Tag found the last package on the ground, which had been soaked in rainwater and was originally discarded, but he picked it up and fried it again, tasted it after frying and the taste was right. Tag found the real secret to frying seaweed, soaking in water. When the butler was discharged from the hospital, their seaweed sold well. Tag calculated that he could make $1 million a year with this method of selling. But at this time, another huge blow came. He received a call from his parents saying that their house was going to be seized by the bank. He learned that his family owed $40 million. In an instant, Tag felt that the sky had collapsed and he would have to sell for 40 years to pay off the debt. When packing up his house, he saw his parents hiding many bottles of sleeping pills in the house, and he realized how much pressure his family was under. He decided to do his best to help his family pay off the debt. This evening, Tag was deep in thought and couldn't sleep, so he went out to buy something to eat. Suddenly, he saw a flying convenience store bag and, upon turning around, saw that there were 3 convenience stores on the street. An idea for increasing sales came to him. Tag decided to do something that others would not dare to think of. He put on his father's suit and went to the headquarters of the convenience store, where he met the manager of the marketing department. He self-recommended and hoped that the convenience store would carry his seaweed, but before he could finish speaking, he was rejected by the manager because his packaging, size, and price did not meet the standards. Tag returned home and was called by his girlfriend to go to school again. He broke up with her on the spot. The lonely and desolate Tag slept next to the butler for the whole night. Early the next morning, Tag rushed out of the house to improve his seaweed. He found someone to design the packaging if it was too rough and made the product smaller if it was too large. A few days later, he returned to the convenience store headquarters with his new product but was told that the manager had no time, so he waited outside. He waited for a long time and saw the manager walking around in the office, but he never came out to see him. He finally lost confidence and gave the whole box of seaweed to the elevator operator, and walked away sadly. Soon after, several employees entered the elevator and saw the seaweed on the ground. They took a lot of packages and tried one, finding it so delicious that they licked their fingers and started sharing it around. Before long, this box of seaweed conquered the convenience store headquarters and they found Tag to negotiate the matter of putting it on the shelf. However, now another huge obstacle stands in front of him. A month later, the food quality inspection will go to his factory for inspection before it can be put on the shelf, but he doesn't have a factory. So Tag went to the bank to borrow $10 million, but when the other party learned that he was only 19 years old, he immediately refused him. Tag collapsed again and stood up. He sold his car and came to his father's last warehouse with the last of his money, wanting to turn it into his factory. To save costs, he lived in the factory with the workers and personally renovated it every day. The date of the quality inspection finally arrived, and the inspector found a large number of problems as soon as he arrived. When he pushed the door open, the paint stuck to his hand. When he walked into the production room, there were flies, the fluorescent light had no shade, the drainage ditch was exposed, and the wash basin was not foot-operated. Tag said that he could quickly fix all the problems, but the manager said he would go back to discuss it. At this time, the butler secretly slipped an envelope to Tag, asking him to bribe the quality inspector. Tag had done this kind of thing 3 years ago, but now he didn't want to. After countless failures, he realized that there are no shortcuts in life. Soon, the entire factory sanitation conditions were renovated, and everyone wore masks and gloves, with shades on the lights. One day, the fax with the results of the inspection arrived, but there was no ink, so the final result couldn't be printed out. Tag rushed outside and looked carefully at the paper in the dazzling sunlight. A word appeared on the paper: pass. On the day of delivery, Tag cried and said, "If this doesn't work out, I'll really have nothing left." A few days later, the 19-year-old boy called his father and said, "Dad, you can come home now." 2 years later, Tag helped his family pay off 40 million debts. At the age of 26, his seaweed had annual sales of 1.5 billion. This is how a super young millionaire was born. This is a real person, and everyone can learn something from him. So, what is the top secret of the young millionaire? We see 3 things. The first is the sense of smell. Seeing people line up to buy fried chestnuts, he specifically went to a distant place to buy seaweed, which quickly identified the demand. The second is the eagerness to learn. Every time he does something, he strives to do his best and learns from every teacher who can teach him, combining the experience of others. The third, and most important, is a heart of iron. No matter how many failures he has or how much despair he feels, he can always get up and never lose faith. Tag once said that doing business is like playing a game, passing one level at a time. You see, if you can make difference, the world will be in your hands.